So next up, we have Betina Costa talking about, does this algorithm have a soul?
Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to answer the question, does this algorithm have a soul? So before I start, let me properly introduce myself. My name is Betina, but you can call me Tina or, the girl from Brazil. And I am a software engineer at ThoughtWorks, and also a volunteer in projects like Jungle Girls and AfroPython, that is basically Jungle Girls, but for the Black community. I'm also a data science student, and I'm a huge introvert, so I don't usually talk much, but if you want to lure me out of my cage, just bring up some movie subject and I'll never shut up again. So, machine learning, what we've been talking a lot about the last 3 days. Society always have searched for ways to improve itself, and machine learning is just one of the ways that we found. And a lot of good things have come from machine learning. One example is in Singapore, the healthcare providers, they use machine learning to offer more customized and better treatments for its patients and better plans for them. And also in Brazil, we have this project called Operation Serenata de Amor that is an open project that has the goal of make politicians accountable for their use in public money, and hopefully spread that information in a friendly way so people can be aware of where their money is being spent. And with such good things being done with machine learning, a natural way that we went to is, what if we could end bias through data? That's a huge problem that we as human beings face. Every single day, we compare ourselves with some prejudice situation. In the streets, in the judicial system, hiring process, loan process, we have the rules weighing often more on the weaker side. In Brazil, for example, a black guy, was arrested during a protest carrying a bleach bottle and was sentenced to 5 years in jail, while rich white guys that literally kill their wives are sent to much less and sometimes not even get to jail. So why we keep delivering the powerful decisions to people that are often full of bias? What if we could pass that power of decisions to algorithms that are basically biased and cold? They don't have any type of bias. They are strictly math. But is that actually true? Well, I think most of you are already aware of this case, but algorithms for predicting recidivism are commonly used in courts to calculate the risk of a defendant to commit a crime again. And technically, these algorithms would be more accurate and contain less bias than if this decision were made by human beings. But A few years ago, public research discovered that that is not often true. When the algorithm gets it right, it's often okay, but when it gets wrong, it is more likely to wrongly label black defendants as more likely to commit a crime than white defendants, like twice more likely to make a mistake to black people's side. But okay, why that happens? We had this algorithm to help us to fight against bias in our society, but it was kind of doing exactly the opposite. Well, this algorithm was based on a set of questions, 137 questions that were answered or by the defendant himself or by criminal records. And it's important to say that race was not among these questions. But three examples of those questions were: how many of your friends / acquaintances were taking drugs illegally? Was one of your parents ever sent to jail or prison? How often did you get in fights at school? At first look, they seemed like very good questions, actually, and doesn't seem to have anything wrong with them. But once you take a closer look and that you understand that a large part of the people who are currently in jail in the United States are black or Hispanic, we kind of see where those questions are leading. When it comes to crime predicting algorithms, this type of algorithms has the goal to help police officers and police department to figure out what are places and neighborhoods who are more likely to have crimes happen in a current time period. And the problem with this kind of algorithms is that they can easily generate a feedback loop. Once you train your algorithm with data based on arrests made in certain neighborhoods, it's very easy to kind of reinforce some status that is already established. So we have a place where a lot of arrests are happening, and then you send more police to this place, and then more arrests continue to happen, and you don't know how much this is accurate and how much is your algorithm causing this. Because let's think of this way. You are a police officer, and you know that that neighborhood is going to happen a crime eventually. That's what you were told. Something is going to happen. So you kind of get more likely to be more aggressive in time of making an arrest because you know something is going to happen here. Okay, but some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not working with crime predicting algorithms. I'm not working with court algorithms. Like, I'm just some machine learning expert, but I don't actually work with any of this. I don't intend to get arrested anytime soon, so what does exactly has to do with me? So I'm going to try to bring this a little closer to home. When you talk about facial recognition, there's a lot of police departments using this type of technology, and that's a natural movement once we have cameras all over the place these days, so there's nothing wrong with them using it. The problem is that 3 of the bigger companies that work with this type of technology, especially on gender recognition algorithms and photos, they are pretty accurate when it's about recognizing white men. They have a 99% of accuracy. But when it's about correctly identifying dark-skinned women, they have only a 35% of accuracy. So this makes highly likely that a black woman will be wrongly identified by facial recognition technology that's being used by the police. A silver lining here is that IBM, Microsoft, they have already acknowledged that problem and retrained their algorithms, so it's getting better. And something I believe even closer to us are search engines. Research made by the University of Washington and Maryland revealed a bias in Google image research when regarding job and career search for men and women. Sometimes during the research, when you're looking for authors and telemarketing professionals that are 2 professions that are basically 50-50 for men and women in the United States, the search results for Google Image were like 25% of women for author and 64% for telemarketing. But besides that, results more than half of the searches were practically equal, with only 5% of difference between the actual scenario and the one showed by Google Images. But when you analyze the kind of image that was being displayed and how men and women look like in those images, the story is very, very, very different. When searched for women professionals, the images that are more likely to appear are more sexy and joking and not really professional images. That was research made in 2013, and as well we have improved a lot since there. But if today you look for like Latin girls or Asian girls in Google Image, you see that we still have a long way to go when it's about search engines. Okay, so after everything that I just spoke here, we may think, okay, we're doomed. There's nothing else to be done. Let's throw our computers out of the window, delete our AWS account. You know what? Too late. Skynet became self-aware, and we are going to die. That's not the message that I want to pass today. So let's go back a little, take a deep breath, and see what exactly we can do as machine learning experts and human beings to go against this tendency. And I'm going to talk more about things that we can do more as human beings and not more like a technical approach. First of all, we have technology problem. We have to acknowledge that algorithm bias is a thing. It is happening, and the moment that I train a machine learning algorithm, that is a possibility. And if I made an algorithm that has any racial bias, gender bias, it is okay, as long as I recognize that, okay, my algorithm has that problem and I have to do something to fix it. If we don't recognize the problem, there's not much we can do about it. And the company responsible for Compass and Predpool, they all at some point denied that there's anything wrong with their algorithms. And once we acknowledge the problem, it's important also spread the problem, because most of data experts and everyone in this room, we recognize that the algorithm bias is a thing. But when we go outside our tech bubble, we see that people had a blind faith in algorithms and machines. If an algorithm is saying something, it has to be true. If you're following your GPS and it sends you to some route, it has to be right. You know, who am I to question the machine? Thank you, Anna, for the amazing example. And that's really dangerous, because we have to acknowledge the power that we have to other people that are believing blindly in the work that we are doing, that it is correct. Another thing is that we shouldn't have black boxes. The Compass algorithm, the Predpool algorithm, they are all proprietary. And it's very hard for us to see how it's really working and why exactly it's presenting these results. And people's lives are being changed by these algorithms, so they should have the right to see how it works. Doesn't matter if they're not going to understand or if it's too complex. You can't have it locked away in a black box that no one can access and no one can see what's going on. Another important thing is to change the status quo. When, regarding the Predpool, the crime prediction one, we have this result, bias or not. That neighborhood, it's more violent. It's going to occur more crime there. So we can change more police there to make more arrests, or we can try to figure out why that neighborhood is so dangerous, what is happening there, and what we can do to make it not be dangerous anymore. Maybe public policy is more education, more culture, instead to send armed police there to just keep things the way they are. And regarding the facial recognition algorithms, it was very accurate recognizing white men, maybe because the most part of the developing team are cisgender white men. Maybe if we have a more diverse team working on that, that wouldn't be an issue. And the last one, and maybe the harder one, is be better. Like, there's been, 100 years since women can vote in the United States. 200 years ago in my country, slavery was still a thing. That we have a huge history of hate behind us. We have years and years and years of data based on prejudice and hate. And honestly, right now, we are not exactly in our best moment. For example, in my country, we just elected a guy who said to his colleague inside of a Congress that he wouldn't rape her because she didn't deserve it. And if we don't become better human beings, we won't generate data that is without bias, and we will forever have this problem. And I'm not exactly an optimist. I don't think that we will end prejudice forever. I think it's in our nature have some kind of prejudice against people who are different. But I hope that in the future, our algorithms would be biased against people who like cilantro than people who have different sexual orientations or a different skin color. So getting back to our main questions, do algorithms have souls? Yes, they have. They have souls. They are designed by us and that project everything that we are, and we can use that to try to change the status quo established today in our society, or we can use to hide it behind this and say it is impartial and used just to keep things as they are. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
Hi, good presentation. I had a question. There was one slide where you talked about 34% error rate difference as far as facial recognition. What do you think were, I guess, the contributing parts to it? Now, mind you, it's kind of a bit of a two-part question because with with algorithms or even models, you know, whatever you input is really dependent on what your output is. Actually depends heavily on what you actually input. You know, so like say for instance with, you know, the flaws in the output that's actually coming out from different algorithms, you know, you could easily go to labor economics and look at you know, earlier models, or even look at IT development research, where you know one can defend that higher GDP is a significant factor to one country becoming going into war. So sometimes it depends on what they're actually inputting. Do you think that's the case with facial recognition?
Yes, I believe that is the case because it kind of happens with another type of technologies. Like we have a group of people that sometimes don't have contact with diversity. They are developing that. So maybe when they train their data set, they didn't actually care about inserting a lot of dark-skinned women in it. For example, Mi Band, this thing that I'm using, I don't know if they still have this problem, but for a time it didn't work to get the heart beating for very dark-skinned people because you didn't test that because it's not in your regular environment, so you don't actually think about it. I don't know if I answered your question.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful talk. My first question is that a lot of the examples that you use were US based. I want to know do you know of any cases that have been exposed of some algorithmic systems that have unfair results in Brazil? Because Brazil has race in Brazil is much different than how race sort of operates in the US. So I'm interested in that. And then a follow-up question is, what are ways that machine learning experts and data scientists can help uncover unfairness, and maybe if they suspect it, what are some strategies that maybe that you would give for looking into particular systems or APIs or whatnot?
Okay, so the first question, yes, we are starting to use algorithms to hiring process, and we have more than half of the population in Brazil is black, and that often does not reflect in most of the companies, and there are companies starting to offer this service of, we can find the best person for you to hire based on a successful profile. And when this movement started, it was basically that most of these successful profiles were recommended white men. And so, yeah, we're starting to have this kind of problem in Brazil. The only example that I know is in hiring algorithms, but yeah, we are having this problem right now. But there's a lot of, not a lot of people, but there's some people making researches to ensure that they can minimize the effects of it. Sometimes the algorithm accuracy is not that good when you have a fair algorithm. So, and the second questions, I actually don't know, because I don't have knowledge of how we can fight this technically through code and how to better train our algorithms. But something I truly believe that can help is have more diverse teams. That is, especially in Brazil, I'm not sure how is the scenario here in the United States, but it's a huge problem. I've worked in several places, and only in the last place that I'm working, I have a black colleague. I spend a lot of time without working with women, for example. So I think when we start having more diverse teams, we kind of have different looks of what is fair and what's not fair, and we can properly assess these problems in our algorithms.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much for your talk. I want to give just an example. I work for GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, and we have GSK Global Health as part of our company because we know that the science tells us when we put a vaccine out, it has 96% effectivity on the US population and 75 on the Brazilian population, for example, okay? So we know that the problem exists. So what we try to do is to make something, so we have a separate department that makes something that it has the same effectivity in other population as well. My question and also my suggestion would be, would it be fair if us as data scientists or machine learning scientists or whatever push things a little bit? Like we skew the algorithm a little bit because we know that the data is unfair and will always be unfair. Like when Alex showed this morning that the word captain is associated with male, is because, of course, captain is a military term, and for the past centuries, military has always been male, mostly. So what if we skewed it a little bit? Like, yeah, we should know it should be more or less equal, so let's just cut out a little bit of the data that we know is skewed, or something like that. Can we do it?
So in my personal opinion, yes, because we have, as I said before, we have a status quo established in our society that isn't necessarily fair. So I don't see much of a problem in us trying to make it fairer, kind of lower down the accuracy, for example. Okay, it's not 100% true, we're pushing a little bit, but I truly believe that it can have positive effects in our society because let's get search engines, for example. We are often seen when we look for, I don't know, nurse, only women, doctor, only men. And how much of this is because it is as it is, and how much this can change when we have equal representation, and then when children and teenagers go make their research to put it on a schoolwork or something, they have equal representation and then say, oh, okay, I'm seeing women in this professional just as I'm seeing men in this professional, and we are kind of reflecting this forward, you know. No, sorry, right answer.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.